Okay, good evening, everyone. At 6 p.m., we'll go ahead and get started with this evening's Planning Commission meeting. Thank you for being here. I've asked Commissioner Kilgore to lead. Join us. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, Commissioner Kilgore, for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. We'll go to roll call this evening, and we have a full deck of cards. It's great to see all the commissioners here this evening. Thank you for your dedicated service. We'll now move to item number 3, public input. This is time that's been set aside for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, questions, or issues that are not listed as part of the public hearing on the agenda this evening. If you would like to make a comment, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no members of the public that would like to make a comment, we will shortly move on from public input, but I did want to make note that I don't know if the other commissioners received it, but I received another communication from the concerned citizens of Saratoga Springs dated July 22nd, 2024. And this is, it looks like they received the response from Mark Edwards, the city manager, but I believe it looks like they were anticipating response from both City Council and the Planning Commission. And I don't know if we just need to revisit with a quick communication to them that the response from the city manager is the same as the response would have been from the planning. At least I could speak for the Planning Commission in that regard. So if we could make note of that and maybe just ask if we need to do another follow-up communication. They explicitly stated that they received no communication from us when in fact they have from the city manager after we consulted about it here in the Planning Commission and noted their communication. Do you want to make a comment, Austin?
No, I was just...
It's all right. You can say something if you'd like. Okay. So if we could make note of that and maybe just pass as a quick action item along, I would be appreciative. With that, hearing no other items of public input, we'll go ahead and close public input at this time. Move to our business items for this evening. Item number 1 under business item is the Redwood Square preliminary plat and site plan located at Redwood Road Boulevard. David Meredith is the applicant.
This one I will make a comment on. I'll go ahead and present this item. Hi. Okay, so we do have the applicant here. Do you want me to go ahead and introduce this item real quick, and then you'll have a chance to talk here in just a moment? Okay, so yeah, so this is Redwood Square. It's located approximately north of the corner of Redwood and Aspen, on the corner of Redwood and Aspen Hills Boulevard. You can see the location here on the map. This is the property formerly known as the Stevenette property. And so here is a copy of the preliminary plat. You'll notice that there is shown a connection to the north and to the south, as well as a connection onto Redwood Road. As part of their requirements for the site plan, they're required to get a cross-asset access agreement with the properties to the north and south, and then also they're required to obtain access from UDOT onto Redwood Road. And you'll notice in the staff report that those items were marked as can comply, which that means they're still in the process of getting those permissions, at least as of the time of the staff report, they were in that process. So that's why that was marked that way. The plat does show 5 buildings, 2 lots, and then, the main road that goes through there is also designated as an easement, so that would provide access through the development. And you can see here the parking does meet our code, as well as the other site plan requirements. There were some other can complies in the report that I just wanted to address. One of them was in the traffic study, and maybe we'll, but it did mention that a 2-way left lane turn lane should be installed on Aspen Hills Boulevard. The plans that they submitted did not show that, but that is what was recommended from the traffic study that was submitted. And we don't see that here, but that's in the engineering report. And then also, just the other can complies that I wanted to cover. They just need to add a note to their lighting plan to make that in compliance. And then when these businesses do come in, they will have to submit a sign permit application for those businesses, as they don't know what the tenants are at this time. So those were that pretty much addresses the can complies from the planning side. And yeah, that highlighted motion there just addresses that in the recommended motion. So the developer is here, so I don't know if they have anything else they'd like to add or if you have questions for them.
Thanks, Austin. Thanks for the presentation. Would you like to add anything to the presentation this evening as the applicant? If you would like to, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Jared Osmond. I'm the developer helping the owner. I'll be his contractor as well to build it. I live at 11509 South Black Forest Drive, Sandy, Utah. 409. As you know, we've been working on this a long time. It's been something that I'm very excited about. The owner is a friend of mine. Excited to see him buy this property from the Steve Metz. Matt Brown, our engineer, has been engaged with this. One of the comments I think I would make is that the traffic study came in, and it looks like that's one of our sticking points, what they said. And one of the problems that I have with it, we want to do everything. We want to do it all, but we cannot control the neighbor to the north or purchasing something we don't own. And for our project to be subject to somebody else's ground doesn't make any sense. Now, I did a project over here across from Costco. We're aware of that one, the plaza that where Iceberg and everything is. We have one access point in the front and then one in the back that's future to be done. We don't have any problems. We have a ride in, ride out kind of situation. The access isn't great, but it works. The access we have on UDOT here should work well. The engineering report that we got from Hales Engineering to me is engineering. It doesn't make sense. We have a project which is standing on its own. The merits of the project have been discussed by everybody for years, essentially. And it's confusing to me as the party that's going to build this, why we would be held to that standard to halt our project until we hopefully buy some ground on Aspen Hills. It doesn't make sense. And so I would ask for that to not be a requirement. I think we have plenty with the southern connection we have into the parking lot with the doctor's offices. And on a Redwood Road, we should have plenty. And until future development comes to the north, I don't think we should be held to that standard any more than I was on Riverview. Eventually, Riverview Plaza there will have the townhouses that are coming in, and that road, Riverview Drive, I think it's Riverview, will be connecting and everything will happen and eventually connect to the light on Market Street. So that's my greatest concern. We're ready to go. Architecture here, we have the owner, we have the excavator, we have the engineer. We're ready to pull the trigger on this, and I'm confused. I don't understand why Hales Engineering, one of my greatest concerns too, if it's okay if I continue to ramble, is this is not new. This plan has been in your engineering department for months, and now we get the comment after everything's done? That seems very odd to me. I just don't understand. I mean, we are spending, we meaning Dave Meredith, spending thousands and thousands of dollars to hold this property, and we get those comments back at the very last hour that it doesn't work without this purchase of ground, hopefully. So I would hope that that would be taken into consideration. That's all. Go ahead.
Thank you for your comments. Would you like to add as well?
Yeah.
If you'll state your name and address for the record as well, sir.
Matt Brown, M.W. Brown Engineering, 578 East, 770 North of Norm. In terms of this, when this item come up to me when I read the staff report. And the staff report comment, if you read it, it says, the traffic study says to stripe a center turn lane for basically any intersection that needs it along Aspen Hills Boulevard. So, you could take this and you could stretch it out, clear past the school to the roundabout if you wanted to. You've got a fully developed subdivision on the one side. You've got a canal on the other side in spots. And engineering added to the comment that we can't reduce lane widths, we can't reduce the bike lane, we can't touch the planter, so they're forcing us to basically reconstruct the road. We got to add 12 feet somewhere and reconstruct the road for 12 feet. And I just think that's an overburden to a project when the traffic study calls out Still Ridge, it calls out D.R. Horton and Lehigh, all these other projects that are contributing to this, you know. It also calls out the traffic signal that just went in. And so how can this be put on with a requirement that physically can't be met by the developer, because he can't condemn any property. These houses just got built. They're not gonna want to give up their backyards. I mean, they're small lots anyway. And so I guess I just don't understand. You know, I started to try to lay it out, and, you know, we can lay it out and we can make it work and we can put turn pockets there. But the only way we really can do it is to, you know, take 6 feet from the planter on each side. Like if UDOT comes in, that's what they did at the intersection to put in the right turn lane. They took your planter away for 100 feet for the turn bay and then bring it back out. And that way we could keep the bike lane that, you know, I didn't even know it was a bike lane until I looked at the aerial and saw the striping that UDOT had put in. But along the whole thing, there's no striping for a bike lane. I don't know if there's signs. I don't know if it's that. I couldn't find the original typical section from, what was it, probably Vic Hansen did it 2015 or 14. Aspen Hill, I don't even know if it had a bike lane on it. So those are just my concerns. And a lot of it is really the timing. I mean, they left it with, and the property owner to the north is flat told Dave he won't sign the easement until he sells the property. So there's no way we can get the easement to the north. You know, it just seems like they're trying to hold us hostage and to bring in, you know, retail that's gonna generate revenue, tax revenue for the city.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Engineering Mike was on for a time. Did you want to add anything to the comments this evening or context?
Yeah, so how we talked about it, that the eliminating the bike lanes through the area of the intersection would break up the bike lanes and create a conflict for pedestrians. The other issue, I have just a question. Do you know why Hales put that in there, where I also see that you have a right turn pocket into the development from Redwood, and it's confusing why they would direct traffic through the.
Well, and UDOT threw that out, that UDOT wouldn't allow us to do it. So we don't have a right turn pocket in to the development because UDOT said that they wouldn't allow it. So when that permit comes, we won't have that right turn pocket on the plans.
Okay. So we'll need an updated plan set, I guess, for that as well.
Well, I guess it's more of a shared bike lane. You know, you have the width to pull over, but it's striped. You're not going to have a dedicated full right turn pocket.
Okay. It's a city amenity, the bike lanes and the park strips, and from past policy, we don't give up city amenities for the benefit of private development. The cost from the residents to supplement the developer's cost. So those are a few of our standpoints for that.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll turn it over now to members of the commission for questions or Commissioner Hill.
Thank you for the presentation, and the process that goes through, sometimes, to get the things where it needs to be, it's very frustrating. It's costly, and it's not our intent to do that. But Kent, from an engineering standpoint on the traffic report from Hales, it talks about LOS. What does that stand for? Okay, level of service, because the report's pretty specific that we're going to have problems with that level of service at Aspen Hills Boulevard and Redwood. And then you go down to 2028, and they said there assumes a full build-out. So they understand that there's going to be somewhat of a choke point there, is my understanding. Would that be your understanding too?
Yeah, in the report, when this report was written, the signal wasn't there, the intersection wasn't developed, and that was a choke point at that intersection. And one of their findings was to install a signal at that intersection, and that has been done by UDOT in the city to get that done. So, but yeah, answer.
So as I read the report again, that is a concern, and I think the engineering department has made that a concern, and we want to address that up front so that we don't build it and then take care of a problem down the road. From your perspective, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but again, we talk about a north entrance exit or access road. And again, it is the department's feeling that we need to have both north and south and the entrance on Redwood Road that's still being considered by UDOT. Is that correct?
Yes. I believe it's in Title 19, there's a cross-access.
Correct, yeah, so that is a requirement in Title 19, that they have to provide a cross-access easement, and then they have to provide documentation of that.
And so, Austin, did we just understand that as the applicants are telling us they're at the end, and all of a sudden they're ready to move, and now there's other things that are being stipulated? Could you give us a little more insight into that from a planning?
Yeah, so my understanding is the property owner to the south is willing to play along and give them the easement, but it's the property owner to the north that's being difficult and doesn't want to sign any agreement or anything like that, which is tricky because that road is stubbed into this property. I mean, it just ends right there. So it was, that road was built with that purpose in mind, that it would eventually one day connect. That being said, it's, forcing someone to sign an agreement and it's not them, it's not the applicant, it's someone else.
Yeah.
That's not the applicant's fault. They can't force someone to sign an agreement. So, but they do show an easement on their plat. So their plat does show that would be an easement on their side of the property line. But yeah.
Well, the engineering report, indicates that the project is anticipated to generate approximately 4,114 weekday trips, including 407 trips in the morning peak time and 288 in the evening peak time. The indication is that there could be a fast food there, which is always a draw. Depending what's coming in, is always a draw. And we see choke points all the way along Redwood today. I mean, it bothers me, that far entrance down on Smiths, there's no room to even get out in the near lane, and everybody's waiting to go over to the left-hand lane. And it's truly a choke point, and it's only going to get worse. So I just wanted to get a little more understanding, because there was a lot to read of kind of where we are. Lotta can complies, and I think those will be taken care of, the lighting and some of those types of things. But in my notes, the big question for me was transportation and the things that we've been talking about. So Kent, thank you, and Austin, thank you, and thank you for giving some insights. Chair, that's all that I had.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hill. Appreciate your questions and comments. Commissioner Mangum?
Thank you so much. Appreciate this. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So Western Hills Road is the fellow that will not give you the easement when he already has the road?
And that's the comment that I would like to make for you. It's the same thing with the subdivision that I did across from Costco at Riverview. We have a point that has an easement to it. The developer hasn't started. And so until that happens, we know it's going to happen. This guy can't develop his ground without signing that easement. He's looking to sell it to a developer. The easement's there. The road will go in. It has to go in. He will never receive any, validation from you or city council unless he agrees to that. So it's not that it's not going to go in. We have plenty of time. He's actively trying to sell that, and I think he will. The next developer that's going to build whatever he's going to build on that is going to have to get approvals, and that is going to happen. We have allowed an easement to happen. Our easement is signed. But now we're being, I mean this term loosely, we're being held hostage, not by you, but by this other owner. We have no control. But eventually, as you know, it will happen. It doesn't really make sense for us to go widen that Aspen Hills Road either when we don't own it and we can't take away amenities. But you'll have that access point. We've got the one to the south. The one onto the Redwood Road is there. It's going to flow. We are at least a year away from anybody opening anything up if we started today, right? So the reality is there's plenty of time to get that through, and I think you'll see that property sold shortly. He's actively trying to sell it. I might even buy it from him just to make this go away. But the problem is we don't have control over what he does. We do have control over signing the easement that we've already signed. And it's there. It's not that it's not going to happen. It's just not happening now.
So I'm still, but you've got Western Hills Drive, that you're calling that the south. So you've got that easement? That one's good. Okay, yeah.
We need to clarify, let's look at this map here. So there's actually two access points on the north, so this is kind of confusing. There's this road here, and that's okay, I guess. So it's actually this here where he's connecting into another, what will be a future commercial property. And so I guess this guy doesn't want to do anything until he sells it.
Okay. That's what I wanted to clarify.
So, I mean, I think, in legal, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that could be a condition of approval that they have that agreement signed, that they work with the developer to the north at the time when that goes to be developed, that could be a condition of approval that a cross-access easement is worked out between the two. Okay.
I would think that if you make it a condition on the empty lot, the triangle just up to the north, that he can't develop it until he does that, then it will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other point, so if I'm understanding correctly, you do not have a lane off of Redwood Road for the cars to pull off and slow down?
My understanding is that there's plenty of room for cars to pull over to that, and we just don't have a dedicated lane.
Gotcha.
People will actually come use that turn-on lane, and PDOT's comfortable. Otherwise, it would. So I don't think that's a sticking point in my opinion. I'm not an engineer. But I don't think it's big.
Just not a dedicated. Gotcha. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Mangum. Commissioner Sprosty Burns.
So where you've put that stub off into that property where where they won't sign the agreement with you, does that, and this is kind of some speculation here, but does that drastically affect the usage of that other property?
No, not at all, because they know that they're not going to get their development done. This is the discussion with him now. He knows he's not going to get it done until he has that access. He realizes he needs it for himself. That lane will exist regardless. It has to.
But where it's stubbed at is like through its thickest,
Well,
fattest
so
part.
as a developer, I would put my building like these buildings are closer to the road, and all that would be parking, and that lane would be absorbed in the parking, which would be an access could direct that road closer to the property line once it comes out. You could put a garbage trash bin back in that corner, or so you could utilize the ground either for landscaping requirements to meet the minimums or some way. I don't think it's going to affect him at all, and I would expect that as a developer myself. You have to have these access points, but you just can't control somebody that owns it.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And that's,
It actually was located off of a concept plan that was submitted to the city 2019 or something.
okay,
And there's so many easements on the north and that with everything that's come across there, that pretty much limits where you can build the building to that sort of northeast
okay.
corner.
They would be very limited to what they could build, obviously, for the square foot and the parking requirements of whatever's going in there.
So they have,
That access point, they would want, oh, that's good, okay. They would want that access point as well, just for traffic.
in that location, though?
They would love it, yeah.
Okay.
You would need that.
And then, so if they have that, where they connect onto Western Hills and then onto Redwood, that's the two spots. I'm not sure what the holdup is. Am I just missing something?
But what you're missing is, so they are required to have a cross-access easement the property to the.
Oh, with
this
every
property where
property.
my mouse
Okay.
is.
Okay,
And so we could, and like, as we mentioned earlier, that could be one of the conditions of approval.
right.
I think for the next guy, it should be. I mean, he doesn't have a choice. That's got to connect, and he would want that. That's what makes retail successful. You've got to be able to go to parking lot.
Yeah,
That connection.
okay, so that was all I had on my end, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. Commissioner Kilgore.
So it seems like there was I don't know if it was a communication issue between the city staff and the applicant, because initially you made comments about how you only heard about this, like, you've been working on this for years, but then you only heard about some of these requirements just last week. I mean, is that
So
okay?
he's
When I read the staff report, about a week and a half or so ago when it came out, it was brought to my attention that we need to do work on Aspen Hill. We've been working for 3 months on this already. And so they're sort of two separate issues. It's the improvements on Aspen Hill that we just found out that would be a requirement. But the cross-access easements, we've been working on that, and to the point that Jeremy, Public Works Director, actually called the guy and thought he had the easement, and then, because we actually have to run water lines up there also, we ended up finding a different place to run water lines because he wouldn't sign it. And so in my mind, when Jeremy said that was okay to do that, it was sort of like, well, he knows eventually he's going to get it, that easement wouldn't, we wouldn't have to have that to go on. But maybe that's just me looking in a glass ball that's half empty, not half full, so.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then you also mentioned that you had to purchase property.
say that. I'm so sorry. What was that?
Yeah, you mentioned in your initial comments that, that you may have to purchase property, but there's nothing in the staff report about it.
Well-
I mean, other than negotiation, I guess.
I guess I was referring to Aspen Hills Boulevard. We really have no control over that. We can't take away bike lanes and amenities. So I don't know how we go purchase ground or condemn ground when that's not a thing. So I don't know how that's a requirement when we can't fulfill it.
Okay, so you're saying that the requirement would be one of the things that you would have to consider. So now, obviously, the city is not expecting that property owners have to buy property. So is there a disconnect again with communication here, or what? I mean, the requirement I don't think is new. I've seen these kinds of requirements with site plans and community plans all the time. And so what was the breakdown here?
Yeah, so the reason for that.
And by the way, the reason I ask is this is an administrative process. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
If it was
it's the- I
legislative,
mean-
I wouldn't worry.
No, you're good. Yeah, I mean, I think the reason for the disconnect is, and the staff report is, so one of the requirements is they have to provide a traffic impact study, right? So they hired Hales Engineering. Hales wrote up a report, and one of the findings was you have to have a left-hand lane on Aspen Hills Boulevard. And so That was the requirement in the report. Then they submitted that to us. They submitted their plans. We reviewed everything. We reviewed the traffic impact study. We're just reading what's in the traffic impact study and saying, look, in this study that you've provided, that you went and gave to us, it's saying we need a left-hand turn lane. So based on the traffic impact study, we feel that's warranted.
Okay.
Based on the level of service, LOS, level of service, right? So that's what was in the traffic impact study. I don't know.
But,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's in here, but my point is it was portrayed to us when your staff report come out, not through the 5 reviews we've had since April.
And we don't know how to
And-
accomplish that.
And if you read the staff report, he specifically says that I can't change the width of the bike lanes, I can't change the width of the planters. So in essence, I have to put a 12-foot lane, which we could do if we could, either narrow the bike lanes a little bit and take some of the planter for the 100 feet plus the tapers to put the lanes in at that intersection. But the comment specifically says I can't touch the planters. So where do you get 12 feet in an existing right-of-way that has 36 foot of pavement already? You have to rebuild the road and push it out and buy property.
Okay, so you're asking these questions here. Do we need to delay our
I don't think
application?
so.
I mean, because if you got these questions and you need to talk to the city about that, and I mean, I don't feel comfortable moving forward if you're not comfortable moving forward. I mean, these are your questions, not from the city.
I think,
And doesn't this go forward to city council, doesn't it?
Yeah, so you would make a recommendation. You could make a recommendation of denial, recommendation of approval. It's still going to go to city council.
Right, understood, but I want to base our recommendation on how comfortable you feel, because if you've got questions still.
well, I think it's not so much questions. We have a mandate. I don't know if it's a mandate. We have a suggestion from Hales Engineering to widen that road. We've been told no. City can't do it. We can't take away the bike lane. I feel from my development that I've already done here in the city that we have so many access points. And eventually, this one going up to Aspen Hills through this other corner lot is going to happen. It has to. This guy will develop. That ground is priceless ground, or whatever. It's great ground at a hard corner. It'll get sold. Somebody will build a building there, and it'll meet all the requirements, and it'll have to connect into our parking lot and then out onto that road. That access point will be perfect. I don't see how widening Aspen Hills Boulevard makes any sense when we can't. And so for us we really don't have questions. It's just, we know we can't. We know that this connection is going to happen. This next guy that comes in, he can't do it because he can't take away from Aspen Hills either. It doesn't make sense. We're just asking for a positive recommendation to go forward with knowing that the future development of this corner lot is going to happen, and we've already provided an access easement, and we will wait for the next buyer, the next owner of that land to connect that. And then we'll have 3 points, actually 4, onto Western Hills. So I think we have the access. I'm not dismissing an engineering study by Hales Engineering. They're a great company. I'm just saying it's not feasible to widen Aspen Hills Boulevard. And so to be held to that standard doesn't make sense. We have 4 access points eventually when this one comes up. I think we have plenty of access, in my opinion. And this is something we've discussed for such a long time. And so it is what it is. We're just here asking you to make a positive recommendation that it can go forward, that we will have it'll be what it is. And if we're not going to lose amenities, then there will be, that part of it's not going to happen. Everything else will have the access points.
Okay, and then is the UDOT approval expected?
Yes,
Okay, what happens if they don't approve for
they
whatever
will.
reason?
We meet the requirements off the stoplight as far as the distance. So,
Yeah, it's just in for
Yeah.
checking off.
Yeah.
They wanted a couple little striping changes.
Right.
On the last revision, Doug Bassett did, and so I expected to hear sometime this week.
Okay,
It's there.
we're very confident that'll be a great access point.
okay. And does the applicant agree to comply with the conditions in the planning staff report?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay. Oh, and I wanted to ask staff, the applicant brought up the Riverview project versus this project. So what is the difference between the Riverview project and this project? As far as this particular issue is concerned?
As far as like the access easements, or what do you?
Yeah,
meaning?
yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
that was what the-
I think the big difference is, well, this one is, both of them, they have to connect either way. So that's a requirement on both of them. It's not going to be any different. I think this one is just that we have a stubborn land to the north that's kind of.
Yes, sir. Great point, actually. We will have to connect my parking lot to whatever happens to us against the river. But that's future. I have no control over that until it happens. Same thing here. It will happen. It's a matter of time. It has to. So,
Yeah, the land, yeah, and the land to the east of the Riverview, that's vacant right now, but it would have to, so.
Okay. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Sprosty Burns.
Sorry, one more thing. The engineering is working on the bond agreement. Is that coming along the way it's supposed to?
When we're ready to accept the construction drawings, we will develop the bond agreement.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. Any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Commissioner Wilden.
Ken, I appreciate you bringing up those concerns, and I have the same concern of moving forward where we have a disagreement. None of us here understand roads in those situations, and this needs to be taken care of either before we deal with this or part of a continuance, or either a condition that it get resolved before, for the city council to accept this. Because I feel very uncomfortable saying, yeah, let's just move forward with a road where we don't have the background or experience to decide on what should or shouldn't happen with roads. There may be other things that we're not aware of that could happen. We're just not experts on this. That's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilden. I have some of the same concerns expressed this evening from members of the commission. It's really difficult, and it's a challenge we're going to continue to bump up against as this growing, burgeoning city with level of service and these traffic reports. It's difficult right now when I look at Google Maps, but for this easement, then we're driving people into a neighborhood, and I'm sure that's not ideal. We do have the access on Redwood. I'll note as well that there is precedent without the extra pull-off on Redwood for some of the other businesses that are already there as well. So I feel more comfortable about that with UDOT pending the approval there. It's a tough call. I feel more comfortable, looking at the condition in terms of, that future sale when that occurs, that this owner comes to an agreement with the future owner that resolves itself at that time. Then I would feel more comfortable moving forward. So those are my thoughts. Otherwise, I'm happy to entertain a motion from the commission.
I'll go ahead and make a motion based on our conversations and the conditions that are outlined. There are quite a few, and the applicant understanding that, I move that the Planning Commission recommends approval to the City Council of the proposed Redwood Square Plot A preliminary plot and site plan located at approximately 1721 North Redwood Road with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hill. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a second from Commissioner Sprosty Burns. I want to make sure that we all understand the conditions that we're proposing. Do you mind reviewing those in terms of, because right now those city conditions are requiring the changes to Aspen Hills and these other requirements, correct? Yeah. So we're going to want to be careful here.
Can I take my second back?
I'll bet it can die.
Okay.
All code requirements shall be met, so including the CAN compliance in the staff report, reports, code will be met. So Just to summarize again, that includes the Redwood Road access UDOT approval. That also includes cross-access documentation with the properties to the north and the south. That includes adding a note to their lighting plan. Also includes submitting sign plan applications when the businesses come in, and then meeting the red lines in the engineering report.
Do the red lines in the engineering report
And that
require
includes
that
the,
for Aspen Hills Boulevard?
correct, yeah, the Aspen Hills Boulevard two-way left turn lane.
And I don't see how, I mean, looking at maps, it's not feasible. So I'll throw opinion into this. So we have a motion and a second.
Maybe I just restate that and take that out of the findings, or what's the thought?
Well, we need to vote on this motion in second.
Okay.
And you can vote against that and let it die and then make a new motion if you would like. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
So that motion fails. Okay, if you would like to restate Commissioner Hill or any other commissioner.
Wait, I just have a question.
Yep, please, that's
So,
great.
So, in our, there we go. In our staff report, it doesn't look like that, and so I'm thinking that's what we want to go with. But including all the can complies in the staff report, so yes, but I thought that we, in our discussion, had talked about adding a condition, which isn't in there, about waiting till the purchase of the property north. I thought that was something that we said that we could include in there as a stipulation. That grants, that allows you then to go forward even though that negotiation. Well, I was wondering did I misunderstand that?
You understood it correctly. So this has been updated since the packet went out.
Okay.
So this slide and that motion has been updated. We reviewed it and updated it for the meeting tonight. As far as that additional motion or condition that we talked about, that's new information that's come. It might help alleviate the concern about that access to the north if we just say, if we change the language a little bit and just say, as a condition of approval, at the time that the property to the north develops, they shall sign a cross easement agreement.
Okay, because if we include this one, then we don't have to worry about all the engineering report, blah, 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 because that's already in there, right?
Yeah, that was the idea behind adding.
Right. So all we have to do is use that and add that last thing we just
And
said.
then add the
Yeah,
new mo.
so I think that would make it a lot cleaner motion.
Yes.
Thank you. So the question that I have is, obviously, if somebody buys this land and then holds out for a few years to develop this property, that's not going to hold us up from developing, knowing that he's going to have to put that road in. And we'll provide that easement at the time that we record the plat. We'll have that easement there. I would hope that that would be enough, just like it was for me at Riverview, that we have a signed easement for the future road that's not there. And we're doing great. It's providing great services. So I would hope that we're not held hostage, so to speak, until this guy develops. But we are willing to connect and we are willing to participate and give easements for all utilities and access at that point. We've already found a solution with engineering to pull utilities from another spot. We've done everything that we've been required to do so far. We're so willing to comply, but we just cannot control land we don't own. We would love this project to stand on its own. We hope that that's a consideration.
So
It will happen.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great concern. So Rulon, I'm going to call on your legal expertise, try to use a little bit of my own. What if we were to say on the sale and future development of that piece of property, and that would cover both conditions that you're concerned about in terms of when it's developed, that takes place at that time?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Rulon, tell me my 4 years of legal education just paid off.
Yeah, I think they paid off tonight. Yeah, I think that'd be a fine condition, is saying upon the future development of the property, because then that would be the trigger. You could say the sale and development, however you guys want to work it. But as long as I think you put the trigger development, not necessarily sale, that would probably be covering what you guys seem to be concerned about.
That sounds great. I like the idea of having both, just personal preference as well, because I feel like that could at least start initiating the conversations between the new owner and this owner here as well. Yeah, please, Commissioner Kilgore.
One more question. So then with the traffic study, now it looks like the level of service is what was the word for it? It's poor. Poor. The level of service is poor even with the traffic light, even with these improvements that the applicant makes. So and then if that north access isn't developed, I mean, it would be even poorer, right? So, I mean, does that change anything as far as what we're expecting, from the applicant for this property? Or, I guess I should be looking to the engineer. Sorry. I'm kind of slow. Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the traffic study says that, with the future development, or with the development, that even with the traffic, because the mitigation was traffic light, and that was already installed, and then of course, these other expectations of the applicant, and then it says that the level of service is still going to be poor. So if that north access isn't developed, then it's going to be even poorer, and is that an issue?
I don't know how to answer that.
Do you want me to answer it for you? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, to the point where we have to consider something, or does it matter? It's going to be poor anyway.
Yeah, logically.
Hope the residents aren't here.
Without that access, yeah, it might, yeah.
Okay. I just want to bring it up. I didn't want it to be overlooked. Okay.
Comment, if that's okay. I hope that's all right. We are so willing to comply to widening Aspen Hills. Absolutely. If you guys will provide us the ability to do it, we'll do it. But we can't. So if you guys want to taper back the street, take away the bike lane, or take away the planter, we'll do it. We're all in.
And I'm not saying that
Yeah.
you are either responsible or not responsible for this. I just want, as a city, that we do consider the fact that if we do put in the condition that that north access doesn't have to be connected until the property is developed, which, like you say, who knows, the next owner might say, no, I don't want to do it either. I don't want to do an agreement either until I develop the property, and that might take 10 years. So if that's the case,
buy it before that happens.
it could possibly happen. If that's the case, then, do we understand, do we as a city understand that that already has a poor LOS and that it's going to be even poorer, in that case? But again, there's nothing you can do about it.
All I can do is talk from experience with what Riverview is. It's bigger. We've got 7 really big buildings versus 5. We have 1 access, and we do great. It works. So all I can say, that future connection will happen. It eventually will go through another parking lot to the south and connect to Market Street. It's all future. I just can't control other people. And so that's the point I'm making here. We can't control the development. I mean, I could certainly look at buying that lot, but the reality is somebody's going to develop it. They're going to see the opportunity for a hard corner, which is very, very appealing to anybody that has a lighted hard corner. That lot will sell quickly. It's coming. And you'll have a great who knows what there. McDonald's, I have no idea. But that's my point. You're going to have something like that on a hard corner. It's valuable ground. The guy doesn't want to sign the easement because he knows he doesn't want to mess with anything until he sells it. Let somebody else take that burden. So that's what's happening. It's coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Mann?
I just have a quick question for Ken. What elements go into the determination that this would be a poor level of service and therefore becoming more poor until we have that 4th road?
So I just also wanted to make a clarification on how the report's written from Hales Engineering. So their findings was that it would be a poor level of service now and in the future, and the next line down is their mitigation. So to mitigate that poor level of service would be to add a traffic signal at Aspen Hills and Redwood Road, and to reroute as necessary through the D&M Richlands parcel. Those are their mitigations to mitigate that poor level of service. So where the traffic signal is already installed, that does reduce that poor level of service, reduce the poor level of service, and then it will further reduce it once the access through the north undeveloped property is installed. So, did that answer
Well,
your?
Well, no, I'm wondering what specifically determines the level of service and why this has been determined to be a poor level of service.
So I'm not the engineer that wrote the report, and I have a little background in how they write the reports, but it's, they have a model, and they input traffic flows from Redwood and other directions, making turns onto Aspen Hills or into this development, and then make their determinations from those models.
So,
Basically, it's Redwood Road. There's so much traffic on Redwood Road, there's not much we can do to increase the level of service, on the intersections. That's basically what he's saying. The light helps,
Yeah.
will help, but it's not gonna jump it up because Redwood Road is at such a poor level of service now.
So it would be safe to say that any development along Redwood Road would be deemed a poor level of service as well, unless we had 3 or 4 access points? Okay.
well, you can see already what's happened, yeah.
Yeah, we already know driving down Redwood Road south of the city. And they've had the turn pockets and signals.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We, of course, have taken city code and
We plug it in. We've taken everything you guys have in your code and we put it in the subdivision, parking requirements, lanes of traffic, future easements, everything we need to do. We have 3 access points right now. The 4th will happen when this gets developed up north, just like the road next to Riverview. And so all this is coming together. You're right, Redwood Road is very, very heavily trafficked, but the reality is city code states what we needed to do and we plugged it in. So I don't know, unless city code changes and you rewrite your code to include something that we could obviously bite off and chew, but we've done exactly what we've been told to do from an engineering standpoint, and here we are. So, and we would hope to be able to go forward after all this work, putting in the code that was supplied to us. And that's what we're hoping for, so. And if you want us to widen Aspen Hills and you're willing to let go of that park strip, great. We're in. Done. No problem.
You have any additional questions or comments, Commissioner Mann?
No, I think that answers my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will be happy to entertain a motion unless there's further questions or discussion.
I'll go ahead and try to summarize our discussion. Help me if I need it. We move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the City Council, to the City Council for the proposed Redwood Square Plot A preliminary plot and site plan located at approximately 1721 North Redwood Road with the engineering findings and the conditions to change to indicate that crossroad, if I'm not mistaken, at the north end, be developed as that property is developed. I'll leave it at that, understanding that we
Give us the
do have
verbiage.
an easement right now signed. Yeah. Does that work?
We're going to
Ross?
pretend like Commissioner Hill just said what you're going to say right here.
On the condition that, the cross-access easement agreement, be signed with the property to the north at the time that property is developed.
Sold or developed.
Sold and developed. Yep.
Sold or developed.
Okay.
And what about the Aspen's Hill Road?
It's good.
Well, I'm sorry, we need to.
Well, I think we're there with, I think the applicant has made his case clear and goes back to the city in terms of if the city wants to give up those things to make those changes to ease that level of service. I believe that's where the all currently
Great.
lies.
Great.
And then, like, again, with Redwood, a lot of that is out of the city's hands as well, because that is a UDOT road, but we do have the turn. And there is, as I mentioned, I looked it up, and there's precedent for other businesses along that stretch that do not have a loading lane or a right-hand lane to turn into, that they just ease over and get in.
Yeah.
Okay, so Commissioner Hill, are you comfortable with the language
I am.
that you
and
proposed?
Thank you, Chair.
Excellent.
I will second.
Via Austin. Okay, we have a motion and a second from Commissioner Sprosty Burns. Do we have any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you for the great discussion. Thanks for being here tonight as the applicant. We appreciate that. Okay, that will move on then to the city, and we now are on to business item number 2, amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, Chapter 19.18, Sign Regulations, Raising Cane Sign Code Amendment. Is that what we're calling it? That's impressive. Item continued from Planning Commission on June 27, 2024. Crystal Farrell as the applicant.
Right there, okay. All right, Commissioners, this application has been prepared, or the staff report and review of the application has been prepared by our senior planner, Gina Grand Prix, who is out on well, not an illness, but a health situation. And so I'm here to present for you and answer any questions. We do have the applicant, Crystal Farrell, here. So, Crystal, if you want to come forward. If you'll recall, this item was heard by the Planning Commission on June 27th. Their request, the Raising Canes Corporation, is requesting a code amendment to allow for a certain feature or certain features on their building. And there were questions that came up, and this particular item was remanded back to staff and the applicant to work further on the proposed code amendment to do what they would like to do. So I'll just review that. So on the screen, and hopefully in front of you as well, are the original requested definition change, which came before you on June 27th. And then the change that is the reworked definition, which is being brought forward tonight, makes just a small amendment there, actually just taking out the verbiage of "and windows," so that we're just focusing on architectural features such as walls and columns and other decorative ornamental features like moldings, cornices, and facades. So the windows thing was problematic, and so that was taken out. So all of this verbiage now is their request. It's just the city went back and said, hey, let's see if we can tighten that up a little bit. Also, the sign definition is looked at with the addition of exception architectural elements. And then what that is, actually we probably should say the same word there, architectural features, or that C become elements. One way or the other, we need to make those come together. The original request is shown here, and then the changes that have been reworked here include that architectural features and double I is shown here, that they shall be constructed of the same materials and colors of the rest of the building facade, and primary colors are prohibited. So that tightens that up a bit. Architectural features shall step portions of the feature to create shadow lines and changes in volumetric spaces of the facade, and shall not project more than 12 inches vertically and horizontally beyond the structure. And then further, it's only allowed on one building facade, and only 10% of one facade could be permitted. So that does tighten up the language a bit. I have to say that staff is still recommending denial. We feel like the code is good as is. However, this is their request. We do feel like the request is better than what it was, and so we're not strongly or vehemently proposing denial. but just the mere fact that we feel like just to protect our vision for signage and architecture in the city, we feel like our code is good the way it is. So if there's any questions, I'm here, or Crystal can take questions.
Thank you, Director Young. Appreciate the presentation this evening. Would the applicant like to add anything to the presentation? If you do, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name's Crystal Farrell. I'm at 19555 South 550 Road in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, 74464. And I have an actual presentation. So this isn't mine, this is this one. Yeah, and it's only a couple of pages, but I would like to,
Yes.
thank you. I would like to show you guys the new rendering that our architect put together that will show you exactly what it's going to look like. And we did work with Gina. Oops, I went the wrong way. I'm sorry. I just reiterated exactly what he just said on the verbiage here. And this is an architectural rendering of that one tower. It's going to be made of brick and be of similar colors as the building. It's only going to be on one facade. It stands, let's see, I've got the dimensions. And as you see, it's going to be as tall as the building, but it's 21 feet tall, 10 inches, and it does project out 12 inches. Here is that a little bit larger elevation.
So you say that would be 12 inches out from the existing facade?
Yes.
Okay, so
That-
a foot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what, when I was here more than a month ago, every question or concern that you guys had, we tried to address that.
We've got a couple questions, but maybe if you want to get through the next couple slides, then we'll turn it
Okay,
over,
there's
if that's
just,
okay.
yeah, like I said, there's this one that shows more, every side of the building, the building elevation incomplete. And then that is just restating exactly what Ken had read that Gina and I and our team talked through and cleaned up the language. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Crystal, thanks for coming back and being with us this evening. If you're okay, it looks like we have a few questions and comments from members of the commission, so I'll turn it over to start to Commissioner Hill.
Crystal, again, thank you. Look, I guess the question that I would have is for either Ken taking Gina's place or Austin in that he's here. I really like how you've incorporated that. So that you look at it and you can see it, but if you're not looking at it, you don't see it. It doesn't stand out. My question for staff would be, if we follow the guidelines that were given and Ken, that you presented, does that lead us to other interpretations for other applicants that we don't want? That's my concern. We've got a willing participant that's kind of worked with this, but if we put verbiage in and we have a non-willing applicant that says it falls within that, that's my concern. And I just want to see what staff feels.
Yeah,
like painted into the corner or what?
That would be exactly our concern. It's one thing to have a proposal come forward and say, yes, this verbiage meets our visuals here, but what other visuals or what other proposals could fall within the verbiage that's being proposed? And it's difficult for us to, imagine what all the possibilities might be on other applicants that come forward on a business. How could they interpret or squeeze in their thing into that verbiage? So that's why we're saying we're comfortable with the code as it is. It's difficult for us to project into the future how this might be interpreted or used.
I'm not schooled in the planning and architecture, those types of things. If it were a financial thing, yeah, you could ask me, but it's not. How do I put this? I mean, I just love this. To me, it looks like a support column. It just happens. But I really do have concerns that you could get something that just doesn't work, color-wise, image-wise. I have concerns. So, Crystal, thank you. I mean, you've done your due diligence, and this is very aesthetically pleasing.
Thank you.
But we're looking at the long spectrum of other things that opens the door to us that makes it pretty difficult. So with my limited understanding, those are the questions I have, comments I have. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. We'll move to Commissioner Kilgore.
Okay. Just wanted to ask the applicant, when you created or helped craft the language for the ordinance, did you use any language from other cities' codes, or is this unique to Saratoga Springs?
This was what was suggested to us by Gina. So we communicated via email after this last meeting was continued, and she sent it over to us and crossed out some language, and our team reviewed it and said, yeah, I mean, it looks good. The concern with the colors, we had the material that we had, our one tower is now going to be similar colors and materials as the building. So I think that would address that concern overall for all businesses.
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if it's editorialized, but so I want our city to be able to accept applications like this. It just seems that, I don't know why you have to jump through hoops when, I think it's great that it does look like the one, but as Commissioner Hill says, it looks like a column. So if it looks like a column, then, there are specific percentage, requirements, no more than 10%, and that is 10%, right?
Yes.
Okay, no more than 10%, no primary colors, with all those restrictions in there, I don't think it's going to be that much different from what you provided. Yes, we can't read into the future, but I was driving up Redwood Road to come to this meeting today, and, there are buildings that face Redwood Road. Many of them are the side of the businesses or the rear of the businesses, and they have signs on there, facing Redwood Road, and some of the buildings would be brown, and then there'd be a big, round, colorful sign in there. They meet code, but it just looks odd, or I shouldn't say odd, because that's what buildings look like with signs on them, but it just looks it's all brown building, and then there's because it still fits code, but it's got primary colors. I don't want to say that, but several of them are like that. And I think that's more disruptive than this, and so if our goal is, and I totally understand the city, we can't anticipate what some people, will interpret in good. They're not doing it to be bad. It's their business, and they have to market it, and they want some brand recognition. So I understand that, but we already allow that to happen when it comes to visual clutter with the signage code that we are comfortable with. And so I feel if that's the case, we're going to have a big red and yellow sign, not a big one, a small, proper sign on a brown building, then why don't we allow for something like this where it is tasteful, it shows your brand, and at the same time, it looks like an architectural feature. And by the way, last time, I really like what you said about architecture features, but then I realized that, restaurants like Neaters could have a fireplace, and they could call that architectural, but then the next person who comes in may decide to rip the fireplace out. So it doesn't really matter if that architectural feature is actually something that has to be like a load-bearing, wall. It doesn't have to.
Right.
Yeah, so we could call it architectural feature for the purpose of bringing in signs in some way, without it having to be like a load-bearing wall. It could be like a fireplace or a column like this. So I've kind of changed my thinking on it quite a bit, but I do want the city to be able to bring some. This wouldn't stand out irregularly in Park City. It would look good in Park City even.
Right.
And Park City is very restrictive, and so I think I don't know. I just want us to be welcoming for something like this. We have gone back and forth. I know the planning staff is not keen on it, but I'm just thinking that, yeah, I'm willing to take a risk because our code already allows for a lot of clutter. I mean, it doesn't allow for a lot of clutter, but it looks like that anyway, and this, I think, is so restrictive already that I think we're all on the good side of doubt. So that's my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. We'll go to Commissioner Sprosty Burns next.
I get it, right? And it's hard to say no, right? We have, this is a great application. I agree. I think this would fit in just fine. But we already have city code. And I don't see a purpose in changing the city code to meet the needs of this applicant when there are potential concerns of down the road. And I am someone who errs on the side of more conservative in this arena. Probably my husband would die if he heard that I just said that. But so I'm a no on this because I don't feel that we should be changing city code to be more lenient and to allow more when there's no true advantage to the citizens, and I don't like it. I would rather have it be more restrictive and blend in better. And I don't think that loosening these restrictions helps things blend better.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. We'll go to Commissioner Wilden next.
Yeah, I thank you so much. Great presentation, both. I tend to be very conservative on things like this, but I also feel like we need to be flexible. And to say we don't want to change the code, to me, seems inflexible. And so I come back to Scott's question. What could be the worst? I mean, if you look at zoning changes, the worst could be a chicken farm, okay? So you know what that is. I'd love to have an idea of what could be the worst. I don't think we have an idea. As I imagine here, there's a lot of things that we brought up a few weeks ago that are a lot worse than this, that we already allow in the city, as you were talking about that, Ken. So I'm thinking, what could be the worst? I really don't know, but just to say, well, I can't picture what could be worse, so let's just stay with what we have. I'm uncomfortable with being that inflexible.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Wilden, for your comments as well. Commissioner Hill, you've been patiently waiting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Let me redirect a question, and this is on architectural elements. Can we put a restriction to the palette or the color that would have to fit the facade? In this case, I think the color fits the facade.
So there is, in the language, it says same materials and colors as the rest of the building facade, so I believe that language is already there.
So
In the proposed
if
amendment.
that's the case in our proposal, I think it maybe limits a little bit of a really outstanding architectural element that we don't want. The worst, as Doug was saying, the worst that we could imagine. If, I just think it's I'm opposed to color, something standing out. And we looked at different colors the last time, just so you were here.
Right.
And I brought that one from, I don't know, back east somewhere, that really kind of met this type of approach. It was a very subtle. And so I appreciate our discussion because I learn a lot from listening to you guys. We each have a different approach. We have, and again, I may be more now leaning towards if, again, I didn't read where it said that it'd have to be the same material, the same hue, if it were an architectural structure. So I'm feeling a little better about that. That's all I had. Thank you, Chair.
You bet. And it is, the second bullet point up there does match the language that's been proposed in the packet. So that's where that's listed as well, just as a point of reference. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Commissioner Kilgore.
One more thing I wanted to add is, I'll get to Commissioner Sprosty Burns' comments, is maybe if you look at it as we're not loosening or allowing new I think what we're doing is just simply evolving, and it's not necessarily loosening. I think you were here when, I mean, the city changes code all the time based on a single applicant. Remember the sign change that we did for, what were those things, like the was it the drive-through? Yeah, we added that. I mean, that wasn't necessarily loosening. We're just adding, more as signs develop, as those signs that I don't use it, so I don't remember what they're called, but like if you're, drop-off or pickup signs. We allowed that now, having signs in the parking lot. So we had that discussion where do we allow signs where it's going to be just all these signs down in the front parking lot because you've got pickup and you've got drop-off and you've got, we talked about that. We also talked about that for a drive-through signs, is it going to be on the building or is it going to be on the, or the menu? That's what it was the menu. And so those were discussions we had and changes to the code that were made based on a single applicant. And so we do that all the time. The difference here, and I don't know if this is the issue, is that the applicant is creating the code, or has written the code. But, it's gone through several iterations now with the staff. Staff is still uncomfortable with it, but I just feel like we have we've broadened the code and brought in more of what's happening in the world with the city, even for just a single applicant that's going to apply to all applicants, and we don't know what the future, what it's going to look like. We even talked about what if those menus are really bright LED lights and just stuff like that. And again, we try to figure that out, restrict it where we can or where we know we should, and then the rest is, okay, we wait for the next applicant to come in. So I feel like we're in that evolutionary process, and based on the restrictions that are already in this code, I don't think it could be much different than what you proposed. And if my imagination is too small, then, we'll have another planning commission that will deal with it. So anyway, I don't know if that addresses anything that you said, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Mangum.
Thank you so much. I think I will pipe in on this. As I sit here and think on the negative possibility, I'm in favor of changing the code. If our existing code doesn't allow something as simple as this, then if we can't find a way to allow something as simple as that for a business owner, then I'm in favor of changing the code to allow it. I'm trying to think of how something like this could negatively affect, but really it comes down to business owners on the most part are very smart and they know how to make money, and if the business goes under and they have to sell the property, the buyer is well aware of what is on the building and they're buying the property as is, and if they want to fix it, they can fix it. And so I think that now that we've made it so that they have to use the existing colors of the building, I think in the worst case, maybe we say that it can only stick out 6 inches instead of 12, but I'm in favor of changing the code to allow that myself. That's
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Mangum. I've got a few quick thoughts on this, unless there's any other comments from the commission. So I think there's 3 things that come to my mind. This is a lost art form in today's world in terms of politics. Very, very localized politics, and the word is compromise, and it's unfortunate. And I think we're on the right path here in terms of there is a compromise being made, I believe, with good faith, both on the part of the city and on the part of the owner, meaning that you wanted a big red one, and we said no, and you didn't want anything at all, and we're leaning possibly towards saying no as well. And so you come back with an idea here, a change, and you're compromising. The city has put forward language that at least it's not necessarily 100% comfortable with, but as Ken mentioned, it's possible that we can, we can at least sample and take a stab and take a risk and see if that's something we can do. And so if neither of us are all completely happy, then I think we've actually won the day, and I wish we could do that more. That's my editorial comment, if we could do that more on higher levels of government. As far as code changes, we change the code all the freaking time. Don't put freaking in the minutes. We do, and we do it for singular owners when they bring something unique and something that has not been brought before the commission before. I think it's our job to listen, and we listened last time, and we had a great discussion last time. And it does, changes do come and changes do evolve. I think we have to be open to that. And I think we have to remember one final principle is that none of this is final. So if we take this risk, if we approve this evening, and come to find out we all of a sudden get giant pandas climbing up Panda Express, like the thing that we saw, which we won't because I believe this is very well written, then we can come back and revisit it. And I think that we get so close to these things that I think so often that, we believe every decision we make is final. And I can point to any number of things that we've come back and revised as we've learned and as we grow. I think we even have more of those this evening. So I believe this is an appropriate measure taken from all parties, both the city and the applicant, to get to something that will work. And I think we ought to try it. And I think, frankly speaking, the city needs a little bit more pizzazz and a little bit more things instead of every single strip mall looking the same. And I will stop talking. So with that, I would be happy to entertain a vote unless there's other comments or questions.
I'll go. Based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move to recommend approval of the requested amendments to Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that.
We have a second from Commissioner Mangum. Have any other additional discussion on the matter?
If I may.
Oh, please.
The conditions of the staff report are leaning towards a negative motion. So perhaps you might want to just say, based on comments made, that we're having, whatever, something that
Approve the
supports your
proposed
motion
amendment.
rather than the staff report.
Okay, so on our staff report, under the negative recommendation option, it just says any conditions articulated by the planning commission. And since we didn't articulate any conditions, I didn't think there were any. But that's our staff report. Maybe it was updated,
Okay. No, I just think a comment based on, some of the discussion here being this is our condition, this is the reason why we're going with a positive motion.
There was some verbiage that we might have wanted to also change.
Oh, correct. We want to make sure that our architectural features match. in
Right.
both-
So where it
both
says
places.
elements, change that to features.
Yep.
That's right, okay.
And Ken, thank you for catching that. I think that's a point well made, just making sure that we understand. So I'm looking at the positive recommendation and it has the findings, the language is consistent. We'll note that we need to change elements there to features. And then I believe that's all in terms of there's no other, and it says any conditions, as you were mentioning, Commissioner Kilgore, is articulated by the commission. So I think we're okay.
Okay, so yeah, let's add that condition to change the wording of elements to, features to elements.
I don't know which way it went.
Elements to feature.
Elements to features. Sorry.
Elements to features.
Yeah.
Bunch of amateurs up here. Look at us. No, we do great. Well done, everyone.
Gold star time.
That was my motion.
Great motion. Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. And we had a second on that motion from Commissioner Mangum, correct?
Yes.
A motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, I'd be happy to take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Let's see, Commissioner Sprosty Burns, you were a nay vote. Would you like to add any additional comments to your nay vote?
I'm 100% fine with being outvoted on this. I think that it's a great compromise, and I think that it's good to have these discussions, and I think that it's okay that things change and evolve and all of this, and I think it's also good to kind of hold to those ideas of what I would like, but ideas of like planning, right? So nothing too serious.
Excellent, thank you. Well stated. Appreciate your comments. Okay, we're now, and thank you again for the applicant. Thanks for being patient and working with us. And thank you. I want to make sure that the staff is recognized as well. I know Gina's not here, but if we could pass our best wishes on to her, both for a speedy recovery and for her work on this. And Ken, thank you for stepping in tonight and presenting on this for us. Great work all the way around by everyone. We're now here on business item number 3, approval of the minutes from January 11th, 2024. Barring any changes, I would be happy to accept a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the minutes from the January 11th, 2004 meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from July 11th, 2024. Any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're now on to items of public hearing. We'll accept public comment on these items as we go through them. The first one this evening is Wander Village Plan 3, Major Amendment Number 2, located approximately northeast of Pony Express, Riverside Drive to Pioneer Crossing in the Jordan River, Oakwood Homes. Are you presenting?
In behalf of Gina again. So the request here, and we do have the applicant here, so we'll turn time over to you in a little bit. So the request is basically not a huge amendment, although as we look at the categories of what defines a minor amendment and a major amendment, it was determined that this one needed to fall into that category, but I'll explain basically what's going on. So the location of the area that we're looking at tonight, which actually is going to affect all of the Wander development, but one of the portions of the request is going to fall specifically in the northern area as circled there, so just off of Pioneer Crossing and Riverside Road. So initially, one of the things that they're looking at wanting to do is to revise how their village plan shows the development of that particular corner. Now, Pioneer Crossing, as you'll see, is on the left side of the picture, so that's actually north on the left side there. But they're just changing the development pattern of that particular block as shown in the red bubble there. There's no need for otherwise amending the code or the village plan because of this, but as we're amending the plan, then this is one request. It does not change the density. It's just a different way of doing their product in this area. The other main point that they're looking at is, there's a lot of verbiage on that one chart there, but I'll show you specifically what's being changed on the next slide. But the layout there of the street with 6 units on either side is the maximum that is permitted in that type of housing unit in their village plan. In other words, between 2 to 6 units can be attached. They are looking at wanting to do something else and have a maximum of 8 units being attached rather than 6. They are not asking to increase their density throughout the development, but they want to change their building product a little bit in some other areas, not as shown on the other map, but in future planning, they would like to be able to go with up to 8 units being attached. So it does change the verbiage a little bit on that chart, which is part of the village plan. So staff does not have any major concerns with this, especially because there's no density increase. It's switching things around a little bit. We do have in other developments currently up to 8 units being attached. So that's nothing out of the ordinary. So with that, can answer questions or can do so with the applicant.
Thank you, Director Young. Would the applicant like to add anything to the presentation? No. Okay. Thank you for being here. We appreciate that. We'll turn it, this is a matter of public hearing as well, so we'll open it up for public comment at this time. Have we received any public comment on this matter?
No.
No. Hearing none and receiving none, we'll go ahead and close public comment and turn it over to members of the commission. Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Ken, for the presentation, and thanks for a full packet of information coming through. You know, city found that everything is in compliance. The one question that I have is these townhouses will have 2-car garages and then the driveway, which gives a functionality of 4 spaces. The only question that I would have is even though the total area is not going to change in density, the neighborhood is going to change a little bit in density from 6 to 8. And the one question I have is always parking. You know, what happens if you've got more? If my whole thought is you may have a garage, but most people don't use it. That's storage, especially in a townhouse. You know, if you have 4, 5, 6 people over, where would they park? I didn't see it in our drawings, but is there a concern of having adequate parking with 8 units right across from one another? So that'd be 16 units. That's the only question I have, Tim.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we will look at when they bring in their future phase plans. That we'll look at that as we do with all of their phases. How does the parking work?
Okay.
So I don't think specifically changing it from 6 units to 8 units creates a new parking problem. It's just going to be how have they laid that out and how have they provided?
How they provided for that extra, area,
Right.
whether at the front or the back, they have a few stalls. I've seen that all over the place, but
Right.
that was the only question that I had as I read through.
And it could be where they had thought they'd had 6-unit buildings and now putting in 8-unit buildings. Perhaps there's more space in between the 8 units rather than 6. It all depends on their layout and their plan, and so we'll look at that.
Thank you. That was my only concern, and if we address that, at a later time, takes care of all my concerns. Thank you, Chair.
I think if you go back a couple slides to where the actual map is, Commissioner Frosty Burns was doing me a solid here and showing me the difference. It kind of shows you, it's hard to see up on the screens, they're a little far away, but there are some parking stalls, Commissioner Hill, on those, the
half circles?
yeah, the half circles that you see there. It's a good question. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hill. Any other additional comments or questions? All right, any other members of the commission for questions or comments? Commissioner Kilgore.
Okay, so that was, when I was reading the staff report, I didn't see anywhere where it said that density is not affected. And so I just assumed it was. Because if you're going to go from 6 to 8 units, then I would assume that that does affect density. When we were talking about ADAs, we were concerned about parking and such just by converting half a home or part of a home into an ADA. And now we're adding 2 units with families and everything else. So I could see that there was parking there, but I didn't think that the parking configuration had been changed. So has that been changed to increase as well, or or it stayed the same, right, from before? Oh, well, the applicant, yeah.
I mean, like was said, once again, this is just the request for the village plan. And when we actually go through and plan this out so that we have it recorded and we're going through the plot process, we'll make sure that we have the parking adjusted at that time to meet parking requirements for the city and for the homes.
So then there is a chance that parking has to be adjusted then?
At this time, I don't believe there is, not according to our discussions with Gina. But that may change in the future.
So parking is it's related to density, overall density, not necessarily that one building has 8 units versus 6. It just, we're looking at all of the total buildings and how they're laid out and the total units that are within each phase. So the parking will be related to the number of units overall, not necessarily on one building. So the parking will be looked at. It will be the same. The density, I thought, and I'm trying to find it, but I have been assured, and you can put it in your motion if you feel that's necessary, that this will not permit any changes in the overall density of the development. It's just shifting things around a little bit.
Yeah, and again, no problem with shifting things around, but we're actually adding units.
No, we're not.
I thought
on a type of building,
right,
there is additional units. But if you're going to have 4 buildings that are 8 units, then you've got 32 units. Well, maybe they've got, what would that be? 6 units that are 5 of them, or, we're doing that. But then with that, we're also adding in another type of product in that area that makes up the same number. It's just a different way of how are you coming to your total unit allocation.
Right.
You're going to have so many 8-unit buildings, and you're going to have single-family homes. You're going to have whatever, but you're still going to meet that total unit number versus if you're going to use 6-unit or 8-unit and single-family or different. You're going to have some 2 attached units, whatever. But the total number doesn't change. It's just how you build it.
So I guess I totally missed that then. Where are you reducing the units then?
Can I explain it?
Yeah, okay, I must have
so-
missed it.
So instead of saying, like, if one building has 6 units in it, they're saying instead the building can have 8 units, it can have up to 8 units. So they're not adding any additional units, they're just changing the configuration of the buildings. So see how they have, in that, on the right-hand side, they have the 4 units that are like next to each other and then backed up to each other in the bottom? Instead of because the way it's written before, they could have only had 3 units on each side of that, right? So it would have only been 6. So they're just changing the way the buildings can touch each other. They're not changing adding any units or anything like that. And so all of the parking is going to stay the same. I know, I was really confused about this too.
Yeah, I'm being
I went
very
on
dense.
I went on like a deep dive on it, and because I didn't want to do real work at work for a minute, and so I tended to do this.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so it doesn't change it, it just changes what buildings can touch each other. I promise it's okay.
Okay.
And as mentioned earlier, this will all be looked at when they bring in their new phases, their new plats.
Right.
We're going to look at that and make sure that the density hasn't increased, but they're just having different types of buildings with units in them.
Okay.
I didn't do real work at all today.
Sorry, I'm daydreaming. Austin, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of add an additional comment to hopefully clarify. So essentially, they're just wanting to have flexibility for the type of product that they can do. So if you look at these maps, you see squares, you see rectangles, right? They haven't decided on what the building's going to look like yet. They haven't given us floor plans, elevations of the buildings. And so they want to have the flexibility. If they want to do an 8-unit building, they can do that. They're still going to keep the overall density for the entire product, or for the entire project.
Okay, it just clicked on. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner Kilgore?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from members of the commission? I'd be happy to entertain a vote then.
I'll make a motion. I move to forward a recommendation of approval regarding the Jordan Promenade Village Plan 3 Amendment 2 with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprossy Burns. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Mann. We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any other additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That passes unanimously. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Ken, for a presentation. Okay, we are on to item number 2, amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code of Saratoga Springs, Chapter 1904.14, Gateway Overlay Parking Amendment, citywide city.
Yeah, I'm now presenting on behalf of Kent Page, who is out of town this week. So you can call me Gina or Kent or Ken. So we've got Ken, and then there's a Kent, and we have a Kendall staff. And so we struggle with that sometimes. So we've made a decision that we will not hire any other in our department with that kind of name. So. All right. Yes, so as staff has been looking at some proposals, the one that will be coming forward soon to you, probably at our next meeting, brought to light some concerns about the gateway overlay parking requirements, and looking specifically at the maps and roadways and saying, okay, so how does a development meet this particular requirement? And we found that there is a need for an amendment here. So the existing code makes it so that any development within the gateway overlay, if it's fronting an arterial or a collector street, that there cannot be parking between those streets and the building, just to kind of have that beautiful visual, with landscaping and the nice features that we're requiring on the building. However, that's not always practical or even possible, the way some of our streets are lined up, so that a parcel may be only so big and there's not room to park behind that and have a sizable building or usable building. So we proposed this particular amendment that scratches, well, cleans up the verbiage a little bit, but basically takes out the collector street requirement. And then with an exception saying when a property has frontage on two arterial roadways, parking areas may be allowed between the building and one of the arterial roadways. That appears to be workable. In your staff report, Kent did provide pictures and explanations of various of our gateway overlay areas and whether they would be impacted negatively or not. Most of them had a situation where there was a negative impact. So with that, we feel that this is a good and responsible code amendment. I'll leave it to you.
All right, thank you, Ken. Thanks for the presentation this evening. This is also a matter of public hearing. If any members of the public would like to make a comment, now is the time. Hearing and seeing none, have we received any comment on this as well?
No.
All right, receiving no comment, hearing no comment this evening, we'll close the public hearing item and turn it over to members of the commission for question or comments. Commissioner Kilgore?
I just wanted to ask, what does it mean in the staff report where it says not impacted and impacted?
So our current code provides for both collector and arterial. There could not be parking between the building and either of those types of roadways. So if we were to not amend the code and leave it as is, there would be a negative impact on a lot of properties within the gateway.
So when it shows examples of impacted, it means impacted in a good way if we change the?
Impacted negatively. That should have been
Don't change
clarified.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Good clarifying question. Any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Be happy to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council to approve the proposed Gateway Overlay Parking Code Amendment.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
We'll give that one to Commissioner Wilden. Thank you, Commissioner Wilden, for the second. Any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, we have one last item this evening on public hearings. This is the Mixed Waterfront Design Standards, adopting design standards for mixed waterfront zones, citywide city. Oh,
There we go. Okay, so being that this is a public hearing item, I'm going to go ahead and just do a brief introduction and then we'll get into the meat of this. So essentially last year in 2023, May 2nd, the city adopted a new mixed waterfront ordinance. And so that's a zone in the city and we adopted a new ordinance for that. At that time was prepared a mixed waterfront design standards draft that was going kind of hand in hand with that. So that got adopted, but the document didn't move forward at the time. It was still in a draft state. And then at a later date, at the beginning of this year in January, the draft document went to the city council for a work session. They looked at it, had a lot of feedback, and then staff went back and worked on that document with a VCBO architecture. We contracted them out to help us with this, and we worked together with them, and we're coming forward with the draft that we have today. So this document, it's to complement the mixed waterfront ordinance. These are design standards, so it's dealing with architecture and then also the layout and design of the mixed waterfront area. So that's a brief introduction for the public hearing.
all right, thank you, Austin. Appreciate the introduction. This is, as noted, a matter of public hearing. We'll open that up for public comment at this time. If any members of the public would like to make a comment, we'll pretend that they're sitting out there. Did we receive any comment on this?
We did not.
Okay, so hearing none and receiving no comment, we'll go ahead and close public comment and turn this over to members of the commission for questions and comments as well. Commissioner Hill, you are first.
Chair. Austin, first, just let the staff know, I was really intrigued by the new design standards. It brings a fresh, almost kind of beach approach to what we want I think, our waterfront to look like in the long run. So again, great job, and I, again, very impressed. The one question I have, do we have any existing applications in the process or existing buildings that are within that waterfront that would fall under the old design standards?
Yeah, we do have one development that's existing, and that would be North, I always get this confused, it's not North Shore, it's North Cove, North Cove Development. So that one's been in here. If you recall, they had like the balconies
Right.
at the lake.
Yeah.
So they came in before these design standards were adopted, or well, before they've even come to you guys tonight. And so we kind of let them have a sneak peek at what we've been working on to kind of hopefully say, hey, this is what the city has envisioned. And so we kind of encourage them to implement some of that stuff into their design on that one, but technically they came in before that.
Yeah, if I remember that presentation, they were pretty innovative of some of the things they do, which fit some of the same feel. I just wanted to see, what the inventory might look like. And so we're hitting this pretty early on. We'll have a consistency around the waterfront.
Yeah, that's the hope. I think if I have a bunch of slides prepared so I can go into more detail, but the idea is we want to, there's a large area. So for example, Pelican Point, which won't be developed for many years, but that would fit within this area. And so we're hopefully, all that acreage down there would have to comply with these standards.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Do you have any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Hearing none, I'm going to be happy to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move based upon the evidence and explanation received today, I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve the mixed waterfront design standards with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprosty Burns. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
That one to Commissioner Mann. Motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thanks for the truncated presentation this evening. Hopefully those slides will be used elsewhere.
Oh, sorry, Austin.
Commissioner Sprosty Burns cut you short.
Sure it is. I was like, I don't want to bore them with that, so I was going to try and power through them as fast as possible. That's even better.
All right.
Can I make a recommendation not hold this meeting on the first night of school next year?
All right, we are on to reports. Do we have any comments from the commissioners this evening? Hearing none, we have the director's report. Ken, do you have anything to report this evening?
Nothing really to report, just a reminder that we are in the latter half of the year now, and so training will be something we'll be reminding you about. So, there are the opportunities online to do that. We have had one session of training already for most of you on the open meeting laws. But I believe you have been contacted by Sarah. She told me she was going to do that. Tell me if I'm wrong, in regards to the upcoming planning conference in Provo in October. And that
I don't believe I've seen it. Has anyone seen anything? I don't believe we have seen anything.
Okay. I'll make sure that gets sent out to you. Yeah. We'll send out. You can either go 2 days or 1 day. Or even if you sign up for 1 day and you can only be there partial, there's plenty of opportunities to pick up your hours that are required just within a few sessions. So, so that would be something to look at. I don't recall the exact dates, but it's in the early part of October. We'll get that sent out. 10th and 11th, okay. And it is in Provo.
Okay. That's a great heads up and a great reminder. Thank you very much. Do we have the next meeting date, Austin, for the Planning Commission?
Our next meeting date, 29th, yep, that's correct.
29th of August. We could go to, October.
No, it's this month, yeah. The end of this month, not October.
All right. Do we have any need to enter into a closed session this evening? No need to enter into closed session. We will go ahead and adjourn for the evening and reconvene on the 29th of August. Thank you all.